Welcome, everyone. My name is Maria Teresa Barbist. I'm one of the co-founders of SFAA, and I'm going to be your Zoom host today. We are very excited that Laurie Steelink will be presenting the spotlight today in conversation with Gina Lamb. Laurie went to SFAI, well, got her BFA in 1986 in sculpture and also performance video, which is now later the new genres department. And Gina Lamb got her BFA in 1981, also performance and video. So we're probably going to hear some stories from back in the day, and everything that has been in between, right, since you left SFAI. All right, I'll hand it over to you, Gina.
All right. Thank you, Maria. Yeah, I'm happy to be here with my friend Laurie. We've been friends for over 30 years now. And Laurie and I did not meet at San Francisco Art Institute. We were about 5 years apart in our trajectories there. We did cross over, though, in many of the faculty that we worked with, being that we were both in performance video, including Bill Geist, Paul Koss, Linda Montano, Al Wong, David Ireland, people that we worked with there. I actually met Laurie quite a bit later in, I think, the early 90s through a couple other alumni from San Francisco Art Institute that we had all moved to Los Angeles. And it was Tova and Rachel Kadori that say, you got to meet Laurie Steelink. And so we all became friends and sort of social artist circle in Los Angeles. But both Laurie and I were doing kind of non-traditional sort of artist careers in that I was doing kind of activist, collaborative media work with communities in Los Angeles, and Laurie sort of doing community building through curatorial projects that she was doing as in addition to her arts practice. And then later in the early 2000s, when Laurie, who I don't know if you read the biography, but she was adopted out of her Native American Akmil Autumn family. And she began to, as an adult, to want to reconnect with her cultural roots. And at about that same time in the early 2000s, I was connecting with Southern California Native communities through media projects, media collaborative projects that I was doing. So our paths kind of became more intimately engaged, not just in the social arena, but in the work that we were both doing and sort of connections we were making. We've camped out in ceremony together, and these conversations have just been ongoing with studio visits. So that's kind of where we are at today. And it's been an incredible honor for me to watch Laurie's work transform as she makes these cultural connections. And so I'm happy to introduce Laurie Steelink and her slideshow here today.
Skug Sialik, Aniana Pshugi, Laurie Steelink. I'm Akmel Latum from the Gila River Indian community. It's really wonderful to be here today, and thank you, Gina, for such a nice introduction. I cherish Gina's friendship and camaraderie and on some level guidance because she's been very instrumental in with me connecting with Native communities here in Los Angeles, greater Los Angeles. And I'm honored to be her friend. And she's an amazing person and creative person. And I think she should get a spotlight on her work and history as well. So that said, let's just move straight into the slideshow, which is kind of long, but I'm going to try to keep it going. Gina suggested that we start with this flag that I made last year for an exhibition called What's My Thesis, which is a podcast here in Los Angeles that interviews artists about their work. And it was a site-specific project where I wanted to use my sewing skills, which I've been doing lately, and create this flag and hang it in the corner of the gallery space. There's also another portal right next to it, which is an exit door. And this is sort of a recurring theme that will be present in my work, that will be continuing to use the word of the day, which is portal. Moving forward, which I'm not, there we go. Okay. This is an image of me as a child looking very serious. I've added the cut feather to the birthday hat. It sort of also depicts maybe from an adult perspective, looking back at myself as somewhat as a dissatisfied customer. But I think all of us have pictures like this as children. And that said, I think that this is sort of the beginning of my fascination with clowns and using clown accessories in my work. Gina, you wanted to say something about this image.
Well, I'm just saying that this image of this toddler in the birthday suit and with the frown and sort of intense stare coming at is kind of the sad clown. And also the feelings of kind of like not comporting with the birthday festivity of sort of the imposter sitting in a kind of confined setting of I guess it's a high chair or something.
Yeah.
And that you as an artist have added this sort of medicine feather into the cap. And at this point, your little self doesn't even know that you need that medicine yet. Or maybe you do know you need it, but you're not aware of sort of where that's going to take you. So it's sort of the sad clown imposter baby.
Oh, thank you for that reading. Okay, and just to kind of further the imposter feelings of being an outsider, I'm standing next to my family, Cornelius Steelink, Jane Steelink, Kay Steelink, and Laurie Steelink, and my baby doll. This was a family I was adopted into. My sister was also adopted into this family 2 years before me. This is a fake movie poster that I made for a Mother's Day exhibition. It honors my mother, Gina Steelink, for all her hard work and efforts. And she also made our outfits. So it's the title of the fake film is The Seamstress. But I still have a look of, do I belong here? I don't think so.
The little doll stands in as the sad clown at the bottom.
Yeah. After becoming an adult, moving away from home, I joined a bunch of punk bands. I connected with a community at a hospital where I worked and really took off with this music, which is something I already had been doing since I was a young child, but this was more wild and unscripted, and it was a lot of fun. But I think it actually led me to want to go to art school. I don't think that, but I know that. This is one of the bands I was in, Clean Dog. The drummer was a good friend of Andrew Hustis, which turned out Gina knew him because he was going to the Art Institute back when she was there. And I had met him on a Christmas break, and he was talking about the San Francisco Art Institute. And I was like, oh, that sounds like a really cool situation. He goes, don't go there. It's the worst school in the world. But that was Andrew. That's what the kind of responses you would get from Andrew. So I ended up going to the Art Institute. And here I am in the sculpture pit, was free plaster, free burlap, and it was very thriving. And I was really kind of mentored along, if not just paid attention to, by people who I felt like I could develop a connection with, like, for example, Bill Geis, Bob Rasmussen, aka Red X, Paul Koss in the performance department, performance video department. Richard Shaw was also a wonderful person to bounce ideas off of. So yeah, these are photos of my experience at Art Institute. And furthering my education, I went to Rutgers University. And again, it was a situation of being found materials being available to us to create work that didn't cost a lot of money. I was very interested at the time in kind of tearing apart like the system and poking holes in the colonial and dominant belief system. And in my graduate thesis, I actually, in writing, tore apart the Declaration of Independence and the so-called Founding Fathers in a sort of S&M Bataille Marquis de Sade-like dissection. And these are some of the examples of the work I was doing. Again, here's a portal, like we're opening the mouth of a figure, and just at the beginning of opening into a portal. So after graduate school, my then partner, Bill Beccio, who also is a San Francisco alumni, and I moved to Brooklyn, to Williamsburg, Brooklyn, and Bill had already been tattooing a little and practicing on himself and then practicing on me. And then I started to practice on him, and we both ended up tattooing. He is still practicing tattooing today, or he's a practicing tattooist today. And I went on to other things, but we were visited by somebody from this magazine, Skin and Ink, and they put me on the cover and put Bill and our work inside the magazine. It was a real honor. But also I want to mention too that through this practice, we reconnected with Don Ed Hardy, who's also a San Francisco Art Institute alumni. And we've been friends since then, and I've done work curating shows for him and so on. But he was a mentor, and Bob Rasmussen gifted us tattoo machines from his longtime partner, Jamie Summers, who was a tattooist and had worked with Hardy, and who sadly died fairly young, but she was a very big inspiration for me. I continued with tattooing, and this is not documentation of my tattoos, but they are both tattoos that I did do on Bill's ass. But this was sort of like really kind of the noticeable beginnings of a portal, of seeing, and the portal seeing out, looking back at you. This was a fun project that was then later analyzed by a psychiatrist in a show at Art Space in New York. We moved to Los Angeles because the former SFAI alumnus were saying this is a great place. The art community is very rich and strong. It's sunny. And so we took their advice. We were ready for a change, and we moved to Los Angeles. I got a job as a registrar at Track 16 Gallery, which I later then became director of. But during this time, this move, I started making these large graphite drawings on paper, which were figurative, supernatural characters, inspired by clowns, horror, lowbrow comics. And I was really deeply diving into an inebriated state of mind due to lots of drink, which I enjoyed and biting in, but these are images that kind of came out of that period of time. And like I said, I collected clown accessories, and you will see these as we go along.
And I would just mention, like, just on those drawings, they have that reference to sort of comic book and tattoo world, but they were really big. I mean, these were life-size kind of characters or entities in the drawings because they would confront you on the wall. So the size was important in these pieces.
And so they were collected in a publication called Clown Dog, which is still available through Smart Art Press, just a little advertising. And then I moved into photography, having my portrait shot while dressed and made up as what I referred to as rodeo clown. Same kind of state of mind, same kind of activity. As if it's a spiritual journey on some level, is to get to this state where it's a complete transformation. Yeah, and a form of shape shifting as well, if we bring that into the conversation. Again, using found objects and my clown accessory masks and so on. And you'll see this continues through the work. And from here, I started looking at nature and going back to drawing, and drawing these beings that I have somewhat, in a sense, a very traumatic look to them, with humans screaming alongside them. They're existing in this world where their natural habitat is disappearing. It's being encroached upon by humans. And I feel for them, and both of these ones that I'm showing you, the titles are a relative, because these are my relatives. They are our relatives, and we need to be mindful of their existence.
And I think it's kind of important to mention at this time was sort of the beginning of you like really actively searching for your biological family and, that reconnection directly with the culture that you were from.
Well,
And so,
yeah, by this time, I've already connected with my birth family in the early 2000s.
yeah.
So I'm making that divide, if there was, we're getting closer and closer, and it continues to this day. Um, so just to continue with this, with that knowledge too, and some experience. As a child, I was very interested in this idea of shape-shifting. I didn't know it then as shape-shifting, but I would become these entities, let's say with supernatural powers, and I would invite my young friends, my neighborhood friends, into my closet where I would read their fortunes or tell them stories about what was going to happen to them in the future. My elementary school was predominantly white. I got a lot of flack for being adopted, for being Indian. And so this closet was sort of like a portal for me to feel safe and to sort of have a certain amount of power. And this was my way of dealing with everything that I was being confronted with. This is airbrush on paper. Again, these are very large. This is probably 80 inches tall, and it is morphing into an abstract layer, which is really comes from cleaning out my airbrush and practicing lines with my airbrush, which I then made it a part of the work. You don't see it so much here, but it's in the hair.
And I
And
love that
then,
the story about the closet because it really is this kind of you gathering this power within a transformational safe space as a child to get
yeah,
away from bullying and then kind of providing that little power leadership with other kids in that
yeah,
idea of
I was a
transformation.
punker when I was a kid, without knowing it, although my sister might disagree. Um, so, and now with those squiggly lines and the cleaning, then that influences me to go completely abstract. And these are the results of that experimentation with trying to create something that's not really recognizable, but that's an entity as well. And there's a sort of a meditation that exists in this mark making, which then becomes somewhat of a ceremonial activity. These are all from the subconscious, and in looking at these things are I imagine these things existing amongst us that we cannot see. They're in the soup of what we're breathing and what we're living amongst, because we are living amongst cells and particles and molecules and everything that has gone on before us. We're breathing in and swallowing our relatives.
Yeah, one elder has told me that the water that we drink is 4 billion years old, came to this earth on a comet. And so the water we're drinking probably passed through the bladders of dinosaurs. And so we are making connections with those ancient ancestors in that way by drinking this water today. It's the same water.
Yeah, tastes good. Uh, well, in 2012, I was offered a live work space in San Pedro, which is a community of the city of Los Angeles. It's where the port of LA is. And the space allowed me to use a pretty sizable percentage of it to devote to holding exhibitions of local artists. There's a pretty vibrant punk alternative music scene, custom car culture scene, artists who've been here for a long time. So these are some of the exhibitions and happenings around various programming. This actually was an installation by several people, one of them who went to the San Francisco Art Institute as well, Antonio Beecroft. We had music programming and a number of other types of programming, dedicated artist talks. One of the things about this community too is that in 1992, there was a gathering that was organized by local and greater Los Angeles urban native community members. And it hadn't happened for approximately 10 years. I think the last one was in 2006. It's still out for debate. But what happened at Cornelius Projects, and I'm sorry, that was the name of my space, I named it after my father, was I held a fundraiser for the Water Director Legal Collective when Standing Rock was going on. I invited the community to donate artwork. We raised a good amount of funds for the effort, but I also invited members of the community to come and talk to the audience, the people, the artists also who had contributed. And these are people that are part and longtime members, and members might not be, but just be the right way to describe them, but native urban native community members. This is Larry Smith, and he runs he's Lumi, and he runs a radio show, American Indian Airwaves, on KPFK, talking to the audience.
So in a way, that the event became sort of a portal to you connecting with the Native community, the local Native community, and the artist community within San Pedro.
Yes, 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 yes. And through that, we connected, and we decided it would be good to try and bring back the gathering. And we connected with Angels Gate Cultural Center, which is where it had originally taken place, and talked to them, and they were more than welcoming to have this event come back. So we've held 7 gatherings since 2017, and this is the latest artwork from our gathering that happened in October. And it's really an amazing situation. It's a 4-day cultural spiritual workshop where we invite elders from across Turtle Island to come and share their wisdom, their ceremony, their teachings, their dances, their songs. And we're situated on a bluff overlooking the ocean under an arbor that we build each year. We feed everybody for free. It's just an incredible experience. It's open to the public. It's for everyone. And I encourage anybody that's in the Los Angeles area, or if not, come for the gathering. It's usually the second week of October.
Yeah.
So in 2018, after the first gathering had taken place, I approached Angels Gate about curating an exhibition that would focus on the gathering, that would be held in conjunction with the theme. And I proposed curating a show about a brief history of the gathering, an exhibition of photographs by Tom Googler of Southern coastal indigenous peoples who were also gathering community people, and then an exhibition about my life as starting with the adoption, and then branching out into finding out who my birth mother was, and connecting with that community, and all along all the things that were supporting me in my life with being an artist, being a curator. And it was sort of like a natural history, anthropological offering. And it was really an incredible experience. It included work by other people who I've collected over the years, who non-native, some native people who are making work about Native issues. And these are installation shots, including inappropriate gifts that have been given to me as jokes by friends, which are complete appropriations of Native American culture. It also included my work. And this was also a very defining moment, because I decided to take some of my older work and deconstruct it and cut it up and make each work stand alone on their work, but that could be reassembled to have a relationship and have a dialogue. And then they become, this was actually, sorry, this was the painting before it was cut up. And then they become these monoliths or characters that function differently depending upon the situation that I put them in or that they're seeing. Go ahead.
Yeah, so this is later. So see, these are some of the ones that survived from that original deconstruction. So it's been interesting to watch you actually deconstruct the work, and then it becomes reconstructed anew in this new form, where added the fringe regalia to them. And these are also kind of these life-size entities. So you had talked about them also being shields, being representations of shields or protections, but they have this molecular level, sort of like DNA kind of imagery of interiorizing, but then entity, exterior entity as well. That is again body sized or life sized. So it's interesting transformation from the abstract into then an entity.
Yeah, and they can, like I said, they can function on their own. The fringe was kind of an interesting addition, which came a little bit later, and we're going to move to this slide now. So I really went wild with the fringe. And one of the, I'll just tell a little backstory, is that one of my friends, who is a artist, a Tlingit artist, and who also received a Western art education at Cal Arts. As I was getting to know her, she said, you know, I participate in these Indian markets and I think you should too. It's a really good experience. You get different reactions from the public, and then you also engage with the artists who are showing there as well. And it's a completely different experience than what you'll ever have known since, you know, having been in art school. It's just a different way of communicating, and it sounded intriguing to me. It was a challenge, and so I decided to apply for the Santa Fe Indian Market in 2019. These are the works that were in my booth, which I had a friend build for me. I can fold it up and break it apart, and I can transport it myself. But the fringe was like, okay, let's make my work a little bit more native feeling, and it was something that really stuck with me. But it really kind of, it added another layer, in a sense of the regalia, the celebratory, ceremonial, a layer to the work, which I continue with to this day. Let's see. So 2019, actually, my four-legged soulmate got very sick, but gravely ill, and eventually transitioned to the spirit world. And I decided I couldn't go to the market in 2019. So in 2020, we were all locked down because of COVID. The Santa Fe Indian Market held a virtual market. And so some of the pieces that fell away from cutting larger from the larger paintings, I started cutting into life size, modeled after bald and eagle feathers, golden eagle feathers, to create another example of, you know, the deconstruction of, on a more spiritual level. These are messengers. And then they were included in a collar-like apparatus that went around this mule deer head in this installation. This is the deer spirit. This is a portal. This is a medicine cabinet on the side containing boxes also cut from deconstructed paintings containing a spiritual medicine. The deer spirit guides you into the portal for healing. And this whole process is a very healing process for me. It is a medicine for me, but it is also a medicine for anyone who wants to participate in this imagined transition into this portal. Another portal.
And even cutting the feathers, the amount of time and energy you spend in that is this kind of meditative ceremonial process. So that you go from these abstract paintings to now a representation of life form of the feather. And so it's interesting, the transformation of how the beginning, the process of abstract painting led you into that kind of meditative space. And now it's reconfigured and reformed into the feather making process.
Well said. And then that leads to start to use a process in using my body, my hair, which had been cut by my mother many times when I was a young child. I hated it. I wanted to grow my hair. This is an act of rebellion to wear my hair this long, but it's also an identifier of being Native. Hair is a very spiritual thing for Native people. It's a protector. It's an antenna. It is something that signifies you as an elder. And so I have no plans to cut my hair anytime soon. I do trim it every now and then. This was an accidental self-portrait pulling this part in my hair. It's called parting the veil. And that part becomes another portal for healing as well.
And that piece is like, it illustrates this transformation, or demonstrates this transformation from the altered state of the inebriated clown images earlier view, these other self-portraits. And this one, it's really, you know, this new entity of the hair itself, but also kind of like where you're gathering that power of the elder underneath the hair.
Yep.
So it's really interesting to see the sort of self-portrait transformations over time, and they'll keep reoccurring again in this show.
So again, the deconstruction causes more small pieces, slivers to fall away. I collect those knowing that I will use them. And I created this series of shapeshifters, which really do shift in shape as you turn them or you walk around them. So this is the same piece. And that's the same piece. And then through photography, I started to take details of those pieces, and then in the computer, merging them, mirroring certain details to create another entity on a flat two-dimensional surface.
And even though it's static, it has this power, like it's gathered all the transformational information from the structural pieces into this very sort of confrontational being in the digital space. So it's interesting.
Another example, I continue to use the cut up pieces to create objects. This is a doll. And continuing with collecting found objects, the medicine cabinet, the mule deer head, the branches, and so on. I found this fan on the street corner, and I had this very inappropriate headdress that anyone can buy at a craft store still, and a Christmas wreath and a lawn ornament and some fringe. And so I added it to this fan, and it becomes the Flim Flam Whirly Catcher. Let me see, there we go. And this is what it looks like when it's running.
So this adding the kinetic aspect to these characters brings them even more kind of to this life place, but tongue-in-cheek kind of like character performers in the space of reconfiguring the work. So.
Yeah. And so now the booth becomes an actual object of art that is installed in the brand new Orange County Museum of Art, which is situated on the Southern California Ahachiman territory. And so the booth now takes on the title of Gathering Power. You have the deer spirit. You see the deer spirit again. You see the parting of the veil again. This is a blanket, a printed blanket of the portal design. Communication device, which is a stick that's lifted by this armature every 10 to 15 minutes and then drop down to the base to ring these bells, an indication to like pay attention, look where we are. We are on Ahachiman land. There's a text to the right that with honor and respect of an Akmel Atum, I am here on your land, and everyone else should know it. And the ray pattern painting in the back is another portal. The hoop in the center, which spins very slowly, has these arrows attached. Again, the center becomes a portal as it turns, and creates a slight wind as well. And it's a protective device to keep people out of the booth. Another use of found objects, this is called Pony. This was at the Phoenix Art Museum in a show of artists, Native and Indigenous artists who are inspired by Southwest car culture, which I was. And there's a kind of a text that goes along with this, but to save time, I'm just going to move forward to a detail. But it's about the history of my love of horses and taking a joyride with my parents' car without them knowing, and before I was old enough to drive. This is a sign that's on the Gila River Indian Community Reservation that also I, as a child, going between California and Los Angeles, where my grandparents lived, would see, and we would see wild horses off the 10 freeway. I grew up with this knowledge, but not the knowledge that my mother actually was living on the reservation as we were going by it, back and forth. Eventually, because of the show at the Phoenix Art Museum, the Gila River Indian News did an article about my work at the museum and about me, and this was a real moment that of honor, and I was very proud to be on this in this newspaper. Just it's like a coming home kind of acknowledgement that I am a community member, and one of my aunties who I didn't know actually found me. She recognized that I was the daughter of one of her relatives, and I would later meet her in Arizona this past summer.
And this, when you told me this, it like makes me emotional, just because we hear in the news of these children that were taken away and sent to boarding schools, and they're just now being returned home as remains, to be repatriated, to be reburied on their ancestral lands. And for you to come back as a living artist to the community, to come home, so to speak, is not only a healing for you as an artist, but it's also a healing for the community to reclaim, to bring back one of those children that were adopted out, sort of the last vestiges of trying to take away American Native American culture.
Yeah, I appreciate that, and I can say, I'll just quickly tell you that I'll talk about it a little bit later, but I was in Arizona for 4 months with my community taking a basket weaving class, and one of my classmates asked me, like, where are you from? And I told her kind of like the whole story of, like, grew up in Tucson, but that I was originally from Gila River. And after I got through this whole sort of long-winded explanation, she said, well, I'm glad you're home. I'm glad you found home. And it was like, oh, it's like, you're right. And here I am. And it was like a wonderful, very, like, God, it was almost heart-wrenching to hear that, because I still live in San Pedro. I'm 6.5 hours away from my homelands, and that encouragement was really wonderful to have happen at the beginning of the class, and I'll share more about that as we get to that material. So these become these entities, sculptural entities, again, deconstructing paintings, this one time work on canvas, incorporating the party hat, the birthday party hat, again, also made from deconstructed paintings. This is a ceremonial piece. It has bells on the bottom. I would like at some point to maybe try to maneuver this so that it's mechanized, so that you can actually hear the bells as the piece moves. Another portal, also a nod to my sculpture professor, Bill Geis, who would use plaster and pigment and then sand it away to create this sort of bone-like surface. Again, this is a portal, and there's multiple portals, and I use this pattern repeatedly. This is a piece that addresses the blood quantum issue, which is a very touchy subject. It's a device, in a sense, that was created by the federal government to determine who's Indian or who's not, based on the blood quantum. And this piece is another deconstruction of these purple-red corpuscles, like moving along through this space without a home. This is a piece that, again, includes a found object. This is a little statue of a bison. It pays tribute to the current effort to return buffalo to protected homelands while honoring the millions of bison who walked before on this continent and who were slaughtered with such force that they were reduced to less than 500 by the end of the 18th century. There were millions of them. Most herds were slaughtered between 1850s and the late 1870s. The fabric represents the stars in the sky, the ancestors, and the stars in the American flag and the banner under which the bison and indigenous peoples were massacred. A ribbon skirt is a ceremonial skirt. The return to the homelands is a ceremony, a ceremonial walk, and a rite of passage. And here we have another version of Gathering Power. This was at Virginia Tech University, lit with changing lights that really kind of made the fluorescent colors pop in the deer spirit regalia, which has also been added to, and blankets, more printed blankets. This is an exhibition that you would walk through to get to my exhibition that I curated of work by a Monacan citizen who is the peoples of that particular area in Virginia. This is work by Victoria Reynolds. This is a installation shot of a piece called Healing Here, Healing. And it incorporates a collection of my clown accessories, empty alcohol bottles. And I'm say that I've been alcohol free since 2017 when I had the fundraiser for the Water Protector Legal Collective, and when I met people that I ended up working with in reviving the gathering. So there's all elements of healing on this table, sort of a market table. Here it's installed in my studio, along with the portraits of the inebriated clown. The snake is a protector, but it's also a very dangerous entity that you have to be careful in crossing the line, so to speak. You've got my clown shoes down below. And then here's another version. This is Gathering Power 3 that is installed in my space in San Pedro. I opened it to the public, and you'll see I added also, this happened in Virginia, the man in the maze symbol, which is a common autumn symbol used in basketry, pottery, and other methods. And it is about the transition of one person entering this maze and how they go through the maze over the course of their lives. There's nooks and crannies. They can get stopped, they can get stalled, and they continue on until they get to the center, which is when they transform into, well, some would say into a star, into the stars, cross over into the spirit world.
I
And
think,
so
wait, but right before you go to this, the interesting thing about seeing these different iterations of the Indian market booth, but in the context of the art museum and in the context of your studio, is that it's become this ever evolving sort of stage for these characters or these entities to interact with each other, and they have different sort of relationships and different iterations. And so it is antithetical to the art market or the art world because it keeps going. These are not like separate works in a sense for sale. This is this ever shifting, shape shifting, evolving, relationship building conversation between your different works. And also kind of, again, both, you know, heavy and serious and ceremonial, but at the same time, tongue in cheek and fun and playful that you find in your work, which I love.
Thank you. So I talked about being in Arizona for 4 months. These are the Superstition Mountains. I was living right next to them. And this is my sister Avelina, my Akmelatam sister, one of the two. And she is holding up a cluster of devil's claw, which is material that we use in our basket weaving. This class is 4 months long, and it happened in the dead of summer because this is when the materials, when the plants are ready to be harvested. Here we're collecting willow along the Salt River. We went out and harvested willow. This is one of my teachers and a friend harvesting willow where the classes took place. We're harvesting cattails in the Salt River. And this is me with a quiped knocking the fruit off of the saguaro cactus, also known as biodoch, which this harvest season defines our new year and the time right before the rainy season. We processed the biodoch and made syrup. It was an all-day, it was actually a 2-day event, and I was really honored to be part of that. Here I am with my teachers, my basket weaving teachers. That's Josh Yazzie on the right and August Wood on the right, two incredible basket weavers. And traditionally, women are the basket weavers. That's their practice, but these guys are incredible, and they're pushing forward, and it's hard to get women to teach these classes at an institution, and I'm glad that they're there, and I'm Really, really love them. And these are the class baskets. There were 2 and 3 year students who managed to complete their baskets. So there was a couple, one in particular, my classmate, who did the basket that has sort of a 3-pronged spiral over on the left. And he was a first-year student, and he almost completed 2 baskets, whereas other people were just getting started with their coils, myself included. It was a long process to process those materials. And here I am finally in the desert, making the sort of a clown-like but elder clown, getting in touch with the sky, and just kind of assuming the position of somewhat of a, dare I say from the beginning, a satisfied customer in this life. And the experience of being there with my community is something that I want more of, and I plan on trying to create a situation where I can do that. But this is the end of the slideshow, and I guess it's a time if Gina wants to say anything more, but if there's any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Well, I just love this image because you're rooted to the ground because of the cactus behind you, which you had mentioned is about the same age as you. And then but your look and the cactus is like directly connecting you to the sky world. So you're connecting the earth planet, your ancestral land, to the sort of looking forward or looking up or looking into future transformation.
Thank you, Gina.
Thank you so much, Laurie. Thank you so much, Gina. I just put it in the chat as well. If you have any questions, please put them in the chat. We got 10 minutes left for you to ask questions. We already have one here from Claire Bain. Could you please say something about the gender change in the last image?
Oh, well, that's a good question. Again, it's like the continuation of me collecting materials. The clowns for me really have no gender. And I was attracted to this beard when I was in Mexico City the year before, and actually bought these as gifts for both my male and female friends. And I don't, maybe the beard in a comical way, Father Time, these signifiers, these classic images of men with these long beards indicate a certain degree of knowledge and experience. Does that answer your question?
It also kind of plays into the fact that the entities are non-gendered and that there's a fluidity in all of the entities within the work, that there is, you know, one of the things that I like about it, because the earlier clowns and even the hair photograph, the portal veil piece of your hair, it's not really gendered either way. So it kind of plays on.
And I recognize this within myself, and you know, the two-spirit term has been in play for a long time, but more recently it's something that you hear more frequently. But I mean, if I were to, in a sense, identify, and if I had that option to choose that, I might consider myself to be two-spirit, because I recognize both the masculine and the feminine in this body that I inhabit in this container.
If I'm allowed to ask a question as well, I would like for you to talk a little bit more about this idea of healing and how you found healing also in your art practice, or where you found it for yourself, because you did so many different things. You know, you did music, you did the tattooing world, and you curated, you did, you know, and then you made art yourself. But you know, if you could talk a little bit more about that.
Yeah, I mean, I think that just living life and positioning oneself in these certain situations, which I've been very fortunate to land. I mean, it's like the imposter thing is funny, but it's also like I've managed to then be maybe considering myself an imposter in the beginning, but managed to somehow work my way to where I feel a certain degree of acceptance. But every time the situation changes, there's another a period of this of kind of, I mean, I think we all sort of go through it, but I think just staying active with creating things and then also recognizing and sort of re-examining my life before I had connected with my relatives, and looking at how I interacted with people and the kinds of exchanges that I had with people, and recognizing them as uh, periods that actually one has to go through to get out the other side and to accept and also try to be understanding of what others are going through themselves. But with this connection to my community, there's a certain groundness that takes place that I really felt when I was in Arizona this past summer. I think being on my ancestral homelands and within my community, that is probably the most significant healing that has taken place recently. And it's a physical one, it's an emotional one, and it's not like anything I've ever felt before. But I had to go through all that work to get here. And so I can't, I mean, besides the experience that I had maybe when I met my birth mother, that too was a significant moment where the healing began to have this connection to this family that I had always thought about as a child. I had always wondered, I'd always wanted to see somebody who looked like me. I wondered what that would be like. And then when I finally was able to have that experience, it also shifted the way in which I looked at myself in the world. And I think that participating in ceremony, in Ipis and Sweat Lodge and other, the ceremony of going out and collecting biodatch, and I would even say the basket weaving is a type of ceremony as well. Those kinds of things have been lately of most help in the healing of me as a human being in this world.
Thanks so much.
Yeah, I think the ceremony itself allows you to step back and reflect. I mean, like Sweat Lodge or time to just like intentionally pull yourself out of the day to day and just reconnect with yourself in a way that is incredibly healing.
Yeah. I just say this, I don't know how much time there's left, but I found out when we were harvesting the biodatch, the saguaro cactus fruit, that at one point there was a ceremony where there was actually wine made from the biodatch. And there was a ceremony, it was a drinking ceremony where one would drink as much of this wine that was humanly possible to get as drunk as possible, then to purge that all that they had consumed of the biodatch, to go in complete like utter like blindness into this inebriated state, and then come out of it through this relief and expulsion of what they had ingested, and they didn't do it again. And the ceremony is not done because we have a lot of problems with alcohol and drugs in our community. And so, me deciding to stop drinking in 2017 when I got connected with the gathering community, that was a healing. And that healing came from getting connected with that community and realizing, in some ways, quitting drinking in solidarity for the existence of my people, and recognizing the trauma that exists and why people feel the need to mask their pain through generation after generation. I mean, there's such rampant generational trauma that we have to overcome as Native people, given what happened to Native people on this continent from the get-go. So there's a lot of healing still to be done. There's healing for the community. And I think that as an individual, as somebody who also came from outside, but is slowly getting connected to be coming inside, that if I can, my presence and whatever I'm doing, creatively speaking, can be of help, then that's what my purpose is. And so there's a mending that takes place with that connection. And yeah, I just turned 65. Another funny fact is that I was born on Thanksgiving Day in 1960, and then I was given up for adoption to white people. I laugh at it. But that too was a healing in a sense, and to land in a family that was very progressive politically. But the only issue for me was that I was not exposed to my culture traditions for a great period of my life until I became an adult, and before I became aware and conscious of how important that was. Yeah.
We have one more comment from Eve Werner. There are aspects of your explorations and personal healing that are more human, social oriented, and it seems like more recently that are more environmentally natural work oriented or natural world oriented.
Well, I would say that just by being present for basket weaving, which I consider this to be part of my practice, going out and being in nature and collecting, harvesting materials is in the natural world. And also curating exhibitions and inviting the public to come to my studio to see my work, inviting community members to participate in sharing their stories, like in Orange County with the booth. I asked the Hachiman a singing group, the Tushmal Halekatum, which is the hummingbirds that can sing, to come and share their creation stories alongside my booth, so that the community in Orange County would know where they were and who these people were, that they're still here. And maybe in the natural world, it's like recognizing that as Native people, we are still here. There's a lot of people who think there aren't any Indians left, or that they don't exist. But we are definitely here, and we are here in this natural world. So I think the community aspect is a big deal for me, because that's a healing part, is to have this kind of exchange with other humans about, our situation, our collective situation. I should mention that there's an exhibition that I curated that's up right now at Angels Gate Cultural Center. So Gina, you want to say something?
Well, I was just going to say, and you spent the last year as an artist in residence, artist scholar in residence at the college where I teach media studies,
Yes.
working with our Native students there and providing this cultural sort of elder mentorship connection. And you've remained connected with these young people, and
Yes.
That's a healing for them as well as you. Just building those relationships in the community.
Exactly.
Building
relationships.
Process.
Yeah.
Thank you so much again, Laurie and Gina. Thank you for this wonderful talk.